Welcome to the Sponsored Rider Club podcast, your guide to motorsports sponsorship. Here's your host, Josh Weesey.
Welcome to this episode of the Sponsored Rider Club podcast, which is powered by AMSOIL. Our featured guest today is backcountry sledder Duncan Lee. I have been promising for a while now that Duncan was going to be coming on the show, and I was so far ahead of my recording schedule, it just kept not happening. But he's here now. This is the moment. He is here. Before we get into the interview with him, though, there's a few other things I want to talk about. One is AMSOIL. AMSOIL and I are working together to make sure that you have the right information to make good decisions about your sponsorship program. We want you to represent the industry well. We want you to succeed. And that's what the show is here for. That's why AMSOIL is the title sponsor for the show. And guess what? They make awesome oils too. Tons of different types of oils. They actually make, this is just a funny thing, I want to do a quick tangent on this. They make lubricating oil for like guns. You know, that blows my mind. I never knew that. I used to buy some cheap oil from like Meyer, or I don't know, for people who aren't from Michigan, maybe you don't know about Meyer, but from the local store, right? You get this cheap oil. You don't know if it's good or not, and AMSOIL makes it. Gun lubricants. Check it out. I think it's pretty cool. I also want to get your feedback. iTunes offers a platform for you to leave a rating or review for this show. That's great on multiple fronts. One, I get the feedback. Two, it also generates more exposure for the show. So do that. You can also shoot me an email, josh@sponsoredriderclubpodcast.com, or you can head over to the Facebook page, shoot us a message. Maybe it's in the group. Whatever, I want to hear your feedback. Also, whatever podcast player you use, go ahead and subscribe so you don't miss upcoming shows. It's a easier way for you to not miss shows rather than you have to remember one day, like, I got to go on there and find the latest episode. No, you subscribe, downloads to your phone automatically. But we've got some great guests coming up. We've got Sean Whittycomb, we got Andy Wenslaff and Taylor Bunke coming up, and we have Ben White from Textron Off-Road. So pretty cool stuff. Ben White is going to be, I think in November is when we are going to be releasing his show. But awesome advice. He is the sponsorship manager at Textron Off-Road, so hard to beat that. Plus, we just had Evan Schendel from Polaris Razor live on our Facebook page. So this episode is releasing on October 23rd. We had Evan on October 22nd. So if you missed that show, that's okay, because we are going to have the audio-only version releasing later this week. That will be the very next episode. Now, this episode here is sponsored by SolderWeld. They produce game-changing metal bonding technology. TopToPodium.com, they're experts in motorsport sponsorship. Bold Racing, they're a family race team, and GSP, XTV, UTV axle specialists. Neverlift Racing, they create comfortable race-inspired apparel. Crash Addict Industries, they provide human protection and extreme racing products. And then Racing Addicts, they're putting a whole new spin on networking and motorsports sponsorship. I also want to shout out some of our other partners: NBRP Power Sports, NBRP Exhaust, HMK USA, Studboy Traction, and GSP XTV. Without further ado, let's hop in. I am pumped to bring Duncan Lee on now. But Duncan, I want you to kind of fill in the gaps from that introduction that we just went through and tell us a little bit about you.
Hey, well, first of all, thanks for having me. I'm stoked to be on the Sponsored Rider Club podcast, and been listening to what you got going on. And I think it's a pretty valuable piece of information that you're passing around to the industry and helping people out with. So, man, thumbs up. And again, thanks for having me on.
Well, I appreciate that. And I also appreciate something that you just did there. You didn't know you did it, but it's tough. The name of this show is very difficult because I put the word club in there. And most people just say Sponsored Rider Podcast, and you nailed it. You got the whole thing, and I like that.
Yeah,
I applaud you, sir.
Hey, right on.
Not that it matters if people miss it. I don't really care, but nice work. Nice work.
No, thanks. Actually, I did notice that, and when I've heard you do the intro and stuff, I've actually picked up on that. So
nice.
I wanted to make sure. I think I probably practiced a couple times just to make sure I could nail it.
Yeah, when I did it at the time when I created it, for some reason in my head I was thinking like, man, club sounds kind of cool. And at the time, Dollar Shave Club had just come out, and there was something else. There was all these little like fancy startups out there that had the word club, and I was like, I like that. And so I did it.
Well, it's more fun to be a part of a club because then you've got a community that you're already rocking with.
That's it. Community, you nailed it. Okay, enough about me. I just wanted to highlight that. Go back in your intro.
Okay, hey, what's going on, everybody? My name is Duncan Lee. I grew up in the Lake Tahoe area, which is on the border of Nevada and California. And man, it's the real mountains up here. You know, my house right now is at 6,000 feet, and the backyard is filled with a playground that is just amazing. So I grew up out here, skiing, snowboarding, racing, you know, competing in freestyle stuff, and then all of a sudden found snowmobiles, bigger, better, farther, way out there. And I kind of just ran with it, man. I've had some close friends, and we kind of got into the industry stuff, and it was exciting and new, and so we just kind of kept on charging. And man, nowadays I call myself a professional backcountry athlete, and I'm also an avalanche educator for the motorized community. So my winter gets pretty filled up with epic, fun stuff, including filming and photo shoots and traveling all over the place, all over the world these days. And I also get to teach a handful and quite a bit of avalanche education between awareness courses and talks preseason, midseason, and then full-on level ones. And I actually also teach with ARI, and I instruct teachers how to be better at what they do, and I kind of help them through the curriculum to dial in their courses so they're the best that they can be.
Oh, that's awesome. And that's actually the reason why Scott Sparrow had reached out to me. So I'll just tell, I talked to you about this in the pre-interview, but Scott Sparrow, who was on episode 71 of this show, he reached out to me randomly. I'll actually go through the full story because it's fun. Maybe I'll get the audience a little nervous here. So Scott reached out to me.
Well, you got me nervous.
I know, I made you nervous, and I was nervous. So Scott Sparrow reached out to me, and he's like, hey, man, I saw that you got Duncan Lee coming on. He was pretty serious at the time, and I was like, yeah. What's up, man? Why you call me about that? He said, I just got to tell you something before you do the interview. And I was like, oh, dude. I was like, what do you got to tell me? You know, and I'm thinking in my head, like, you know, he's a felon or a murderer, or like he recently laundered money from somebody. I don't know. All these things are going through my head. And I'm like, man, I'm going to have to cancel the recording. I can't have this as part of the podcast. I went through everything. He's like, yeah, man, he's awesome. Like, he's you really are going to enjoy this interview. And I was like, oh, okay. I can deal with that. I can deal with that.
Man, number one, thank you so much, Scott. Dude, that's so awesome. And you had me a little worried too. I'm like, oh no, did I do something bad? Did I do something wrong?
Yeah, he
that cracks me up.
You know, Scott, and actually a lot of people in the backcountry community are very passionate about avalanche safety. So I know that was one of the things that he told me about you, that it's important. It's good for many people, actually as many people as possible, to have that knowledge. And we know that we lose friends every year, unfortunately, to avalanches. Just the same as I know out, like I read out in Michigan, you know, we lose trail riders all the time to trees and, you know, and hitting corners too fast and head-on collisions. So, you know, these things happen, and it's, you know, I'm glad that you're out there educating.
Well, so am I, man. I mean, just like you said, we lose too many friends every year, and people have incidences where, you know, you could just be riding on a trail. Next thing you know, it takes a turn for the worse. Mm-hmm. So there's inherent risks in these sports that we do, and kind of all motorsports, right? Mm-hmm. You're going faster and farther, and I think that there's a lot of ways that people with knowledge and that have like gone through professional training have the opportunity, and, you know, almost not a requirement, but, you know, kind of like a social duty to pass on the information to others that may not have it or may not have thought of it yet. So, you know, we're out there riding a lot, and we've seen a lot through the years being in the backcountry, and man, it's a wild place. It's still the wilderness. It's still, you know, Mother Nature sets the rules out there. So you got to play by them.
Yeah. I've only been out west riding once, but that was one thing that, you know, the rider that took me out, it was Curtis Fernie, out in Idaho Falls, and he walked us through all of the details, and he took us in very low risk areas. Like, we were not ever in, you know, as new riders, me and one of my buddies, we were in no risk of getting hurt, or, you know, we were always in a pretty safe area. But, he still made sure we had all the right equipment and all the right training. But so that's for people, just my public service announcement. I kind of have two things. One is take an avalanche safety course, and make sure you have all the right equipment. Make sure you're riding with knowledgeable people and you understand the snow conditions. If you're riding out in Michigan or New York or any of the trail systems that are out there, helmet. Everybody wears helmets on snowmobiles, which is phenomenal. I wish everybody wore them on motorcycles, but that's for a different day. But get a good helmet. If you ever want to watch a video on helmets, Donut Media, I think, does a breakdown where they cut open a motorcycle helmet that's like $500 and compares it to one that just barely meets the standards at like $100, and they explain like the reason why it's more money, and they show through testing how it actually is a better protection for your head. So spend that money, get the helmet. Helmets actually expire, so you have to pay attention to that. So the materials are only guaranteed for a certain period of time. I don't know what that is. I think it's maybe 7 years, or maybe it's less. I don't know. But get a good helmet, wear the right gear. Be careful. All right, that's it. That's my public service announcement for the day.
That's a good one, though.
But I want to know more about you. I want to know more about your background. That's what we're going to do in Heat 1, is kind of dig a little deeper there. So I want to know how you first got started in motorsports, first off, and then I want you to kind of take us through your journey to where you're at today.
Okay, yeah. Actually, for me, there was kind of not much choice getting started into motorsports. My father grew up in Southern California, and he's been into motorsports his entire life as well. He, I think he swapped out a transmission in this, like, not an El Camino, and a Ranchero, I believe it was, in his driveway when he was like 13.
Yeah.
And, before he could get a driver's license, he had a vehicle and was working on it, wrenching. And then he went on to become a boat drag racer and circle racer. And actually, he has some wild stories from his late teens and 20s of setting world records with Gale Banks. If you are familiar with diesel products, Banks turbos and
I know
stuff like that. Yeah. So my dad and Gale Banks hooked up and did some wild, like adding turbos to these blown fuel flat bottom drag boats and just blowing people away. And he's got some wild stories, man. Just a go-getter. And so then actually my dad was into boats pretty heavy and started manufacturing boats. And then we came along, and he then got into car racing, and he was building boats and racing cars when he could. And he definitely still has a few track records around the United States, which is pretty awesome. And some kind of lower level racing, not stuff you'd really see on TV. I think at one point he was racing the Trans Am series, which is televised, but other than that, like the SCCA Sports Car Club of America, and some really funky looking cars. He did this one series that, like, they just looked, I don't know, the front wheels were covered, and I think that both wheels were covered. It was like this big square. It was a really awkward looking car, but it was I think I forget what the number they called it, but it was like a American City Racing League, and each city had like a team of 3 cars. It was pretty cool. So I got to go around to a bunch of tracks and hang out, and can't say my mom was really stoked on it, but my brother and I would get to run around and check out these loud, fast race cars. And yeah, motorsports was kind of like part of our upbringing.
That's awesome. So you were surrounded by motorsports at a young age. You grew up in it. You got to see your dad doing this stuff. What happened next?
And let's see, I think I was like a junior in high school or senior in high school. And my mom would always be told, she was like, no dirt bikes, no toys, no motor toys for the kids. Like, one in the family is enough, you know? She's just like, no way, man. And then finally, I think my brother was at college. My dad's like, screw it. He got him and myself some go-karts.
Okay.
Down in Reno, about half an hour, 45 minutes from where I grew up. There's a pretty awesome go-kart track out near Stead. Okay. And so we started doing a little go-kart racing, and turned out I could keep up with the old man. And ran some corners faster and stuff. It was super fun.
Yeah.
And actually, it was super weird. Like looking back, I'm kind of bummed, but at the time I was so into snowboarding that I was kind of like, Dad, I don't think I have the time to like race go-karts. Like that sucks. But I was I was into snowboarding like heavy. You know, I was part of the young Groms, the first Groms in the sponsored world of snowboarding. Joel Mahaffey and Ben Ashburner and like a bunch of my buddies were the Volcom team. So
okay.
It was we were up here, you know, living the Tahoe life, snowing in winters and bumming rides to Squaw and snowboarding our butts off.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. And actually, it's interesting hearing the background of people when they come on the show because, I mean, for example, Scott Sparrow, he was a sponsored athlete before he got into snowmobiling, and he used to do rodeo. Like, that's pretty cool.
Oh, nice.
And, you know, we've had
Let
people
her
on.
buck, man. That's
That's serious. And I was like, yeah. So he was like, yes, I used to be a sponsored rider just of horses and bulls and whatnot. And I was like, okay, very cool.
Yeah.
But yeah, and that, you know, people come on, they've done BMX or, you know, different sports, snowboarding. We've talked a little bit about that. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah, you know, actually, where is Scott? Is he in like Carson or something?
Oh man, I should remember this. I cannot remember.
Or is he in Fernley?
These
I think he's in Nevada, right?
Yes, I just don't know where.
Okay, so
he's close enough to Reno.
Actually, he's pretty. So I know a place you can go pay 20, or you know, this is 15 years ago. You could go pay $20 and ride a bull.
Yeah,
it was pretty fun for a one-time shot.
That's, I don't know. That's I would almost think they need to pay me $20, and then for me to consider it. I just don't know if I want that experience or not. But I got the fear in me. It's in there. So
it was amazing. But I mean, props to those guys. Like mounting up on a bull is like
that's serious.
It's like dropping into the gnarliest mountain with the worst avalanche conditions you could think of.
Yeah, it's just something that I've never wanted to do it. So, but yeah, the people that do it, awesome. Yeah. He's somewhere close to Reno just because I did the Vegas to Reno race.
Sick.
I was I should say I was part of the pit crew, but I'm part of the race team.
That's awesome.
And he was going to meet up with us at the finish line in Reno this last year, but our car had some issues early on, and we didn't make it all the way to Reno. So he messaged me and he's like, "Where you at?" I was like, "Yeah, we're not gonna be there. We're not gonna make it."
Yeah, that's racing.
Right, it happens. Along with half the other crew that can't finish, half the other field that can't finish Vegas to Reno.
Yeah.
So. But yeah. So what else? What happened after that? So you're in a snowboarding, did a little playing around in the go-karts, but what happened next?
Yeah. Like I said, pretty heavy into snowboarding. So I was riding for K2 and going to a bunch of the rep stuff and helping the local rep and going up to Mount Hood in the summers and doing that whole thing. And then a buddy of mine and I think I moved back home from my college attempt, just finding out that style learning wasn't for me. And so when I got home, I had a new buddy that I met, who actually ended up starting Alpine Assassins with, Ken Evans. And I started living with these guys. He's like, "Dude, you should think about getting a dirt bike." And I'm like, "Huh, that sounds like fun."
Yeah.
He's like, "Dude, it's so sick. It's like snowboarding in the summer, like all summer. We'll just go shred, hit jumps." And like, okay, so I outsourced where to get a moto, and man, first dirt bike I got was a 2000 CR 250. Just a beautiful bike, man. Oh, the thing was so
classic.
Sick.
That's classic.
And then we started riding. I think we rode like 4 days of a week or more. And we, just started hitting jumps, and the moto was definitely the segue. And then a couple seasons, like 1 or 2 even, same buddy Ken goes, "Dude, you should get a snowmobile."
Yeah.
And I'm like, yeah. But
I like
just
Ken.
want one
Ken
for access. Yeah.
Ken and I would get along.
Ken
like
is the man.
We are very
For
good.
Sure.
Ken and I are good at spending other people's money or convincing people to spend their money. We're very good at that.
Well, he's a good talker. He definitely talked me into both of the things that really got me stoked. yeah, so he's like, dude, get a sled. I'm like, oh man, that sounds amazing. So I worked like extra hard that summer. I just started washing windows. So this is a while back. And I found a line on a sled, and I'm still telling him, I'm like, no, dude, I'm just going to get it for access. I just want to go snowboard the rad stuff way out there. And so sure enough, like 2 weeks on it, it was an RMK 144 800, red and yellow. And, threw some like huge ape hanger bar risers on there. And we'd been watching sled necks, and, being in the mountains in the snow was my backyard. So it just happened, like me and Ken were just out just getting rowdy on these things.
Yeah.
And, dude, it was amazing.
No, that's awesome. I love hearing how people get into these things, and then I love thinking about, I don't know, have you ever heard of the butterfly effect, where it says, a butterfly in one area of the world that flaps its wings, it can cause a hurricane or a tidal wave in another part. I always think about that. Like, what if Ken decided he didn't want to tell you about snowmobiling? You and I would probably not be sitting here talking right now.
Right? I would have been bummed.
It's so
like,
weird.
Dude, you're holding out on me.
Yeah, exactly. No, that's cool. Okay, so now you love snowmobiles. It's awesome. What are you up to today? What are you excited about today? Are we at today? Did I skip too far? Did I skip a part of the story?
I would say kind of, yeah, like kind of skipped where everything started to align and click in the avenue of like deciding to go towards where I'm at today, I think.
Yeah. Well, let's hear that.
So
let's get into that part. That's what I want to hear.
The meat and potatoes. So myself and Ken Evans, and then I reconnected with a childhood friend from second grade of mine named Grant Corrigan.
Oh,
he had recently come back to the area, and he was in school in Reno. He was going to like engineering school with another homie, Ryan Odo, and we started connecting and all riding together, and just like jumping these things, dropping cornices and shredding pow, and no snowboards, no skis, just sleds, and kind of started pushing the limits, I guess, of riding and what people were doing. And we were watching sled necks all the time, and we really felt like there wasn't much difference, right? Like they were riding different terrain because we weren't going anywhere yet.
Yeah.
We were just riding the Sierra, and but man, we were, doing the same stuff, hitting big jumps and big drops, and on these clapped out old sleds that you look at now and you're like, how did we ride those? What suspension? So then, the sleds started getting better, and we met this other dude from Utah randomly who came out here, and he was with a group of guys. His name's Randy Sugahara.
Okay.
And man, like everything clicked right when he got here. It was just so funny. Like we were riding a zone, and it was dumping like a classic Sierra storm. So it could be snowing anywhere from 2 to 8 feet, within 24-hour period.
Yeah, that's wild.
It can just be nuts here.
Yeah.
So Randy drives out with some homies, and they ask a Caltrans guy where they can go ride, and they point him to Donner Summit, where we were out at Castle Peak. And it was that kind of blizzardy day where if you're not a local, you're probably not going riding because you need to know all the terrain. These dudes just like, we didn't even see them in the parking lot. We were already out there. And they showed up like halfway through the day on this hill climb, and it's dumping. And all of a sudden we're at the top. We're like, wait, is that a sled coming up? And this guy gets close and sticks it and rolls down the hill. And another one comes up and makes it and parks with us. We're like, who the heck are you guys?
Yeah.
And they're like, oh, we're from Utah. We're like, what? Like, well, you're out here on today? Hell yeah, you can ride with us. This is going to be fun. And we spent like a week riding together in some epic conditions. And, oh, dude, it was amazing. So from that day, we started going out to Utah and riding with Randy every season. And he'd come out here for a trip. And so we kind of bounced back and forth. And, man, we had such a good connection. It was kind of just this full-on brotherhood, and we would just push each other super hard.
Mm-hmm.
And so at some point, we were all sitting around like, sleds are getting more expensive, and the nbsp. It just came out, or
Okay.
was just coming out. So we were riding revs and jumping highways and just kind of just pushing it. And we look at each other like, hey, do you guys want to start like a film company? Because you know, we have all the contacts in the snowboard community and ski community here in Lake Tahoe, and just seems like we either need to figure out how to get some sponsors so we can continue to ride like this, or we need to maybe throttle back a little bit and focus on not breaking our stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
So man, we sat down. It was 4 of us, and we came up with Alpine Assassins. Ken came up with the name. I'm somewhat of an artist, so I drew up the logo. And then we actually had my brother, who's a wicked smart dude. He gets government contracts in the defense world, but he helped us design a sponsor packet that was like 8 to 10 pages.
Nice.
And we went head first into marketing a snowmobile DVD with kind of a different twist. Like there was Sled Necks and Thunderstruck and their action sports videos with music, and that was about it. So we went for we tried to do a total different kind of mold and designed it a little more about kind of what we go through to go ride, and maybe some of the trips. So the whole thing was like, we kind of tried to sell it on the trials and tribulations of being a snowmobiler in the deep of winter and going to these crazy places. So
no, that's awesome.
Yeah, it was,
it's interesting how these things get started. And what I did too while you were talking, I wanted to pull up. Originally, I was actually going to go to your Facebook page, but I Googled Alpine Assassins. I wanted to see that, and I ended up going to the website. This website is awesome. Who put this together?
So over the years, it's changed some hands now, and Randy Sugihara is the man that runs it and owns it, and we all kind of, let's see, things change, right?
Yeah.
So we went through the paces. We had a really good time, and we have this great connection. And I think it's hard working with close friends as well.
Yeah.
You got to find that right happy medium. And so we had just all gotten to a point of like, hey, let's change it up. Let's make it different. And so Randy ended up with the company per se. And I think, let's see, all my DVDs are downstairs. I think the 4 of us did like, I guess we started as 4. My buddy Grant in 2010 sustained a L1 burst fracture and spinal cord injury, actually out on snowmobiles.
Yeah.
And so he kind of passed the torch on his section, and is kind of totally on a different path now, but he's killing it. If you get a chance, Google Grant Corrigan and check out what this dude is up to, because his story is amazing. We just actually went to his documentary called The Push. He's the first adaptive athlete to cross-country ski to the South Pole on the 100-year anniversary of Ceramus and Scott setting it. So
yeah, that's awesome.
That dude's a go-getter.
Yeah, definitely.
He'd actually be a great person on your podcast as well.
I was actually writing his name down because I'd been following him for a little while, and I was like, that could be
cool.
An option.
Yeah, dude, he's a motivational speaker.
Yeah.
He's got a strong message of positivity for everybody, and like, I don't care who you are, what you do, where you're from, he speaks words that will resonate with you. It's amazing.
Yeah. Well, that's good. I like it.
Yeah, so Grant kind of, let's see, we had to change some things up. So the 3 of us took it over, myself, Ken, and Randy, and we ran with it and did, I was doing a majority of the editing, film editing, making the making the movies, along with a couple of buddies from the ski and snowboard world out here. Steven Sig helped me huge, being somewhat of a director and kind of giving us the feeling. And then our homie Logan Knutson, who's the dude shoots, I tell him that he shoots lightning bolts out of his finger at the editing software. Man, he's amazing. He works for Jones at the moment, and he's done a whole bunch of stuff in the snowboard world. He's just such a cool dude and stand-up guy. And classic filmer, though, his sled's always the one that you're like, oh, I hope it makes it.
Yeah.
Because, like some of those guys, I feel like Logan has more passion than most, right? He's he puts more money into his camera than he can into his sled, but he
Yeah.
still makes it out there and makes it happen. It's just so awesome.
Oh, that's cool. That's cool.
So then, we changed things up, and Randy took it over, and I think Randy's done a couple, like 2 films or something. I think 6 and 7 were under him, and I think every time the movies kind of gain some production quality, which is cool.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And as gear got better, as certain gear got a little less expensive to hire or outsource, so it's been a really fun process. And honestly, like, when we first came together, we kind of marketed this package deal of a bunch of riders. So a company was able to like have kind of more fingers out there, I guess, and actually have something to show for it instead of, I guess it's also a little different. Like, social media was just kind of
right. That's what I was trying to picture too.
Going and
what this is probably 2004, 2005.
We didn't start until, let's see, 2007, I think, is when we like sat down.
Yeah, okay.
And then 2008 or 9, somewhere in there, maybe even 2008 was our conception date.
Yeah, and at that point, social media, I don't think Instagram existed at all. Facebook was probably the biggest thing, and I don't even know if they had pictures yet on Facebook.
Yeah. Or what was the other one? MySpace.
MySpace was probably phasing out around that time.
Oh, was it already?
I mean, it still exists, but it was clearly losing traction with Facebook around.
Yeah.
Ah, man.
It
yeah,
must have
7,
been,
8, 9.
It must have been just. Yeah, it must have been just getting going, because I remember like trying to make media, and we had like pretty bad cameras at the time, and I'm sitting there on some old computer, a PC, and trying to like put together photos. And there's some pretty funny old posters that we did. And that was like one of our things, like, oh, let's print some posters. We'll go to shows, we'll have our logo, we'll wear some hats, and we'll try and hawk a bunch of DVDs and see what happens, man. This is awesome. We love it.
Yeah, definitely. I want to break into the interview and take a minute to thank the sponsors for this podcast. Are you ready for an entirely new approach to motorsports sponsorship and networking? I'm assuming the answer is yes, because why else would you be listening to this podcast? We are excited to be teaming up with Racing Addix. They are legitimately questioning and challenging the status quo on sponsorship. Once you become part of their network, they will first off sponsor you directly, but then also help link you with other companies who are dedicated to making motorsports better and providing you with additional sponsorship opportunities. This is crazy stuff. If you're excited about this, then join the club. Your next step is to head over to the social media and find Racing Addix, give them a follow, and stay tuned for what's next. Safety is our overriding priority. I hear it all the time, but I have to ask myself, is it though? Is that the first thing we think of? Is that the first thing you think of? Over the past couple of years, we've seen the performance of production UTVs increase, somewhere around 350%. That means these machines give us a lot more opportunity to have fun and win races, but it also, unfortunately, gives us new opportunities to crash. And that's why we have partnered with Crash Addict Industries. The owner, Travis Pointer, became very accustomed to crashing early in his career. He saw it as inevitable, and he set out to make the process safer. With a passion for racing, welding, and engineering, Crash Addict Industries now produces full cage and other protection systems intentionally designed to protect you during an accident on the track. They also offer a line of human protection products through their vendors. Do this for me at this point. If you're racing with a stock cage right now, please go check out CrashAddict.com and at least just see what they have to offer. Even if you choose to go with a different company, please make safety your overriding priority. Look, I'm sorry, but I gotta admit something. I like to look cool. I like to wear high quality clothing. I like it to be comfortable, and I also like it to portray the values that I also hold true to myself. That's why I like Neverlift Racing. So they were founded in 2013, and they are all about high quality, comfort, and looking cool. So, like I said before, exactly what I'm looking for out of clothing. Admittedly, my favorite shirt of all time is the Neverlift Racing silver badge t-shirt. Like, I wear this thing probably too often because way too many pictures of me on social media are wearing this shirt. Either way, they have a ton more out there. So go get your shirt, your hoodie, your hat, and actually your socks. Probably one of the most comfortable pair of socks I've ever owned too. And they got pretty cool things where it says never on one side, lift on the other. Really cool stuff. Get your apparel. Wear something that supports your values. Live fast, drive hard, Neverlift Racing. I hear it constantly from racers that a good suspension setup is absolutely critical for performance, and that's why I'm going to talk to you next about Bold Racing and suspension. Now, it's really critical to understand your suspension, and there's so many intricacies with the valving and the shims and all this crazy equipment that you need to actually, rebuild and properly set up your suspension, that it's really important if you're ready for that next level of performance to partner with an awesome suspension company. Now, Bold Racing is that company. They're not only specialists with their suspension setups, but they also partner with companies that produce amazing custom components. And on top of that, they're a family race team. They actually race themselves, so they really understand the type of beating that your vehicle and your shocks can take. So what I want you to do is give them a call and just chat with them. Talk to them about suspension. Their number is 702-506-5354. If you're not ready for a phone call, go ahead and shoot them an email, bold.racing@yahoo.com.
What's up, everyone? This is Mike Pasquarella, founder of Desert Vets Racing. When the team goes racing, we always have our SolderWeld products with us. Keeping the cars in the fight is our number one concern. With SolderWeld, we can do that. SolderWeld is a leading company in the U.S. for aluminum repair. They specialize in radiator repair on the fly. If you're stuck in the middle of the trail or a race with a hole in your radiator, oil pan, or canister, or even an aluminum line, you can fix it right then and there in a matter of minutes with their AMSOIL aluminum repair rods and flux. It's the only complete and lasting fix in the off-road community. SolderWeld's new UTV off-road kits fit in every ride and are easy to access on the fly.
SolderWeld continues to make a huge positive impact on this industry. So I really encourage you, get in there now. Go to solderweld.us, check out their products, because this stuff is changing the game. Two questions I get continuously about this show and about sponsorship is, do I need my own website and do I need a resume? The answer is, in my opinion, yes to both, and that's why we partner with topthepodium.com. Now, if you want to see an example of what a professional website and what a professional resume looks like, you got to check out topthepodium.com. They did my website. The Sponsored Rider Club podcast website is sponsoredriderclubpodcast.com. That was created by Jeff Vanistall of topthepodium.com. I think it's awesome. I get a lot of good feedback about it. And there's a number of other websites out there that Jeff has produced that are just phenomenal. So I think it's important in this world of social media where you have control of your content. That's what a website does. It gives you full control. We don't know what Facebook's going to do sometimes. We don't know what Instagram's going to do. We don't know what Twitter's going to do. So if we don't have that central location to direct people and house our content, there is some risk that we incur. So I strongly recommend getting a website, talking to topthepodium.com. And then the resume, again, is massive. And if you want to stand out, get it done professionally. And honestly, it is one of the best ways to step up your game and present yourself in the best way possible. Well, that was we still got another, 7-8 years to go.
Yeah, I know, right? Oh, man. Yeah, let's see. So what happened next? So Alpine Assassins was kind of alive and kicking, and our, a couple of our mottos, it doesn't matter how big you go as long as you go. Mm-hmm. And we were always, kind of promoting the brotherhood of it all, and that we're out there kind of as a team. Like, same with your riding partners. Every day you go out, you don't, I hope you don't ride alone in the mountains, because it's just too gnarly. Every once in a while, depending on where you are, depending on conditions and what terrain you're picking, I guess riding alone is somewhat okay. Because sometimes I do ride from my house to my buddy Justin Sheaf's up over a ski area. Mm-hmm. All in all, if you're going out on a powder day for those epic conditions, like, attacking it as a team is it's a must, right? You need your safety nets, you need your buddies to reassure you, but also check your head to make sure you're not making bad choices. And so we always kind of we enjoyed pushing that aspect of it. And then, right towards that, when that was phasing out, I was looking at, the whole movie thing kind of changed, right? Mm-hmm. Like, DVDs and films are less and less and less since around 2011. Mm-hmm. And the short-based, quick web edits were popping up. Right. And so I kind of jumped on that, and I don't even remember what the first year I did that. Maybe 2012 or something. I started Let's Ride video series for my own webisodes. And let's see, I'm at 22 episodes now. I think one year I did 4. Some years I've done 2, some years 3, but I kind of shoot for 3 a winter season, then try and fill in some gaps with some maybe summertime fun. But I started kind of trying to do something new, shooting for around a 4-ish minute webisode. Some of them blow past that and go 10 minutes. But I always try to keep it fun and kind of do some product checkouts, so then I could really sell sponsors a tangible item, right? I'm like, oh, hey, your logo will pop up at the beginning of this and in the end credits, and I'll give you 1 product checkout or 2 product checkouts, or, if you guys want to do this, then your gear will be in the video. It'll get, I'm the main rider in it or whatever. And, or I'll go talk with other riders and other people that I'm riding with, and kind of, show the experience of being out there, and then try and squeeze in a couple product reviews, because I think it helps when people more than just, see the video and see the product. That's one thing. You see a pro rider and he's throwing down some crazy maneuver, and you're just like, whoa, that's sick. What's he on? And you're like, oh, okay, I wonder why. But you can never really find that information out. Mm-hmm. So I was trying to kind of offer something more, and trying to be somewhat genuine about it. And I try not to go after products that I don't want or don't see a need for. Yep. Cause then you're kind of forced to bend the rules. And if you're using something that you don't like, then I don't think that's a very wise decision. Right. Because then you're part of the sales team when you're a sponsored rider. So you're required, usually under contract, to promote, and, that in turn drives sales. So, you're selling the products that you're sponsored by. So being able to stand behind them is kind of a huge aspect, right?
Oh, definitely. I mean, a number of points that you just talked about is something we try to harp on in the show. I've never heard it really put exactly that way. You are part of the sales team. But yeah, that's who you are. You're part of that. And then also what you called out too around believing in the product. That's huge. I've told people on the show too, if you don't know the product, you got to at least believe in the company, or at least believe in the people behind the company, and then learn the product as a result. And most likely, if you do have that connection with the company or the people, then you're probably going to have the same connection with the product. But I know I've had that before, where people have reached out to me and I'm like, I don't actually know what that product is yet. So SolderWeld has been a sponsor of this company for of this podcast for little year and a half now. It's been a little while, and they reached out to me at first. I was like, you know what? I've seen SolderWeld. I don't exactly know all of it does, and I spent time going over it with the owner, Lance Robinson, and he sent me some samples to kind of look at, and But gosh, after talking to him, I was like, this guy has it figured out. I love the way he thinks, I love his view on motorsports, and I love what he wants to accomplish. And I'd met some of the people within his company, and I was like, I don't think I could go wrong here. Like, yeah, let's do it. Let's do it.
Nice.
And yeah, so it really means something. I think it would be pretty tough to try to sell a product or a business that you don't believe in.
Yep.
I don't know how to do it, but either way, I'm glad you hit on that. And also, I don't know when I'm going to end up releasing this episode in relation to some other ones, so I don't know if this is going to be before or after. But I did an episode with Ross Robinson as well, and he talked about the product reviews, which I think is pretty cool. I know Chris Brandt does some of that, and I think it's pretty valuable. I know I base a lot of my purchasing decisions off of product reviews, whether it's on YouTube or Facebook or wherever I can find access to that information. And if it's from somebody credible that I believe in as well, like, it's just that much more, there's that much more validity to it. And that's what it's all about. That's what the influencer marketing theme is there for.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And your comment about, believing in the people at the companies, that's huge, right? Like, if you have a solid relationship and you can actually trust what somebody's telling you about something, then, I mean, like, say no more, right?
Yeah, it's shocking.
That's huge.
I think that plays a role too in how I've wanted the industry to shift towards, and that's bringing in non-endemic sponsors, so people that are not necessarily part of motorsports, they're outside of that, bringing them in and selling that product that way. A great example of this, I just saw it. I think it was one of the Arctic Cat. I think it was the snowcross team, and they had at Heydays. I met this group, and they all had Bubba Burger hats on. So for people that don't know, Bubba Burger is this. It's like a frozen hamburger patty that you can buy, at most retail stores, and it's not part of motorsports, right? But like they all were rocking the same hat, and it looked like they were part of it. They were a team, but it looked like they were part of a team. And I thought that was cool that they brought somebody into the industry. Now maybe they love Bubba Burgers, maybe not, but I'm sure at some point they were like, I love the strategy, right? It makes sense. It feels good the way that you want to connect with us. And yeah, guess what? I had a couple burgers, and they're pretty doggone tasty. I actually have had Bubba Burgers, and they're really good. But
nice.
It's just things like that. I think sometimes you might not use the product on your sled, right? Or you might not use the product on your UTV. Maybe you haven't used it at all, but this might give you the opportunity to learn the people first, and then say, yeah, let me try the product. Yeah, okay, I can get behind this. Actually, sorry, one more last little spiel here, and then I'm going to let you start talking.
Keep going.
I'm probably going to get a negative review like, Josh never lets his guests talk.
No way.
But no, I had Megan Meyer. She's an NHRA top alcohol racer. Super legit, super smart. She's been on the show twice now, but she mentioned, she's like, I hated energy drinks. Like she's like, I don't drink energy drinks. I never did it. She's very health conscious. And a company reached out to her. It is called Celsius Heat. And they have their own version of an energy drink. And at first she's like, I don't know about that. They sent her some samples and then helped her understand the business strategy and the fact that they are targeting health conscious people, and it is a more health conscious alternative to standard energy drinks. She's like, now I can't stop drinking them. And like, she loves it and she loves selling it, and it fits her brand so well. She didn't know it though. She had to dive in, and it started with the people selling the idea and the strategy, and went from there. But all right, back to you.
That's kind of what it is, right?
Yeah.
Like all the products are out there. It's hard to find something that's new and different and actually breaks a mold. Mm-hmm. So at this point, it's almost like if you have a good strategy and good people to work with, then the product will reflect that as well.
Yeah, definitely. What are we even at present day? I'm gonna probably get in trouble for my all my
You're
sponsor
good.
stuff because I normally already gone through the sponsorship, the putting in the commercials. I usually don't do that until we get to Heat 2, but we're kind of already into Heat 2 here. We've been talking about that stuff. What else, man? I mean, what else after Alpine Addicts got rolling? After you felt like it was a good time, things were working out. What happened next?
So yeah, after Alpine Assassins, it started the webisode thing, and then I was looking at opening my own guide business here in Tahoe, and so I founded Let's Ride Adventures, which I was going to kind of one roof do the webisodes to keep it fun, and then do some guiding and clinic stuff, and then so on my way to get certifications for that. I was starting to get avalanche education. I started with a level 1, which, to me actually seemed like I was just trying to check the boxes because I felt like I had a pretty good grasp on all the knowledge for spending so much time in the backcountry in the winter and riding mountains that, people don't usually ride. So you're out there making fresh tracks. You got to analyze these conditions and all that stuff and recognize terrain. So, then after my level 2, which was like 2 seasons later, I was trying to do some guiding. The Forest Service did not want to, or I should say, never would have given me permits, even though I spent a couple meetings with them and kind of jumped through every hoop that they asked for. I even paid for insurance upon their request before having land to guide on. And then they just stopped calling me. So I kind of got rubbed the wrong way with that. And, but it didn't stop me. So I have a buddy who was doing some rentals in the area on private land. And I just said, hey man, can I pay you per person and I'll make you additionally insured? Can I run some clinics and see if I can do any guiding stuff on the property you lease? And so that worked out for a couple seasons, which was cool. I never really, either I wasn't marketing it well enough or people really didn't have a grasp on what I was offering or who I am. And not that actually helps. I think, just because I never feel like I'm that large of an influence in much. I just keep plugging away because it's my passion and I want to be out there. So yeah, I didn't really have a good response to it. And so I kind of just kept focusing on the webisodes. And after my Avalanche level 2 class, I was reached out to by, I think Bridgeport Ranger District, and also kind of around the same time, Travis Feist with the Sierra Avalanche Center. And they had obviously kind of heard of who I was in the area and just that I'm a rider and trying to be a professional athlete. And I had some education under my belt and I was teaching people how to ride sleds better. And they said, hey, do you want to start doing avalanche awareness classes? And I'm like, well, that's kind of sounds pretty cool. Like I like giving back to the community, and man, that's a topic that everybody definitely needs more info on. So I started kind of helping with those, and it was just kind of a natural fit. I think after the first season, I think we did like 3 or 4, and I was kind of the co-instructor. And then after that, I was just like, wow, this is actually super fun. I'm out there all day for, an awareness class is like 2 or 3 hours in the classroom, and then we would do an 8-hour field session. And so we'd go out and ride all day and just like have a group of students around 10, and like everybody would learn new stuff. We'd do training. We'd all play with beacon shuttles and probes. We'd analyze terrain, and it was like, oh dude, this is actually super fun. Right. So after that, I started continuing my education on the professional side of things in the avalanche world. And man, every season since then, it has just been growing, twice the amount from the season before. I kind of quickly jumped up and started helping advise ARI, which is the American Institute of Avalanche Research and Education. My buddy Travis Feist was working on a new snowmobile specific or motorized specific curriculum because it does include snow bikes, right? And so I started helping advise on that and make sure the wordage is right. And then all of a sudden, boom, I take lead instructor training and kept jumping through hoops. And so over the past 8 years, I've stepped into a role where I sit on the board of directors for ARI, and I'm one of the trainers, which means I teach the instructors. I certify people to become lead instructors and give them continuing education so they can be the best that they can with the ARI curriculum. And for those of you that don't know, ARI, they basically write curriculum, and they're a nonprofit. So it's all funded by donation and some grant money. And they basically have quite a large staff in place to come up with curriculum, write curriculum, and they've kind of standardized it. So what their mission is to save lives through avalanche education. Mm-hmm. And, this is a pretty large goal and a pretty big mission because, we've kind of steadied ourselves in actual fatalities every year. It kind of rests around the number 20-ish in I think that's the United States.
Yes, I have no idea.
Yeah, I think it kind of goes up and down. North America might be a larger number, including Canada, but snowmobilers are usually about half of that. Mm-hmm. And if you look at our percentage-wise, that's a really large percentage compared to how many people are out backcountry skiing and snowboarding. So ARI kind of dived into the motorized side, and we have a handful of lead instructors out there. There's some newer providers that are snowmobile specific. So people that have been riders, have been guides, are now avalanche educators specifically for snowmobilers, which I think is awesome. It's much better than like being a sledder and trying to go get avalanche education. 8 years ago, I didn't get to take much. I don't know if I've ever taken an actual avalanche education class on my snowmobile. It's all been human powered based because I wanted the education. I needed the education, and those were the only options. So over the past handful of years, though, there's a lot more options now that are out there, which are great. Mm-hmm. The more education out there, the more people that we can save. And honestly, it's a community effort. So I think there's a few people out there that might not agree with ARI, which I don't really understand why, because ARI is trying to provide a curriculum that's the best that it can be because we have so many people involved and we require a lot out of our instructors, right? There's specific courses you have to take if you want to be an ARI instructor.
Yeah.
So to meet those requirements, it basically means that we're kind of standardizing a curriculum, and we're providing these instructors with a lot more kind of ammo, right, to go teach their classes at the best they can be. Mm-hmm. One of the cool things I think is like once you go through the process to be an ARI lead instructor and you have a providership and you're actually actively doing classes, you're able to take the standardized ARI curriculum, but then you can always personalize it, right? So you can change enough stuff in there to where you're still teaching your class, but you have the ammunition of ARI standing behind you, which is a worldwide organization. So like, it's just, it's always a work in progress. And I've been excited to work with ARI because of what I was just talking about, right? They're like committed to this. They've got a lot of resources at their fingertips and people that have been in the avalanche world for, 25 plus years. So it's pretty exciting times. We've got a lot of new courses going on, a lot of new instructors, and I've been really excited to find kind of a niche in the snowmobile industry to where like I'm looking down the road at, when I'm 60, I'm planning on doing the same thing I'm doing now. Mm-hmm. I'm looking at this from such a longevity standpoint. And one of the nice things is now I've also created some work right through the winter time. Mm-hmm. Because if you're just a pro rider doing films, you're probably not making enough money to actually like sustain riding all the time. Mm-hmm. You need some sort of job or something, or you're, a Levi LaValle or Tucker Hibbert. Those guys are racing and competing. Brett Turcotte, these guys are all competing at things and really like they're kind of on this different echelon of snowmobiler. So for a normal backcountry rider that's trying to be like a professional athlete just from being in the backcountry, like there's no races, there's no contests. You can be in films, and that's some sort of promotion. You can help companies market, and we've got such a small industry that it's pretty hard to get a paying pro rider job
Mm-hmm.
as just a backcountry guy. So, yeah, I've been stoked, man, helping people. Every class we do, people come out of it and they're just like, wow, like, thank you so much. I learned so much. There's a whole bunch of things that I'd never even thought about. And then same goes for different talks that I do. I've done some presentations to the entire ski community. Last year I did the California Avalanche workshop. I think there was 500 to 700 people in an auditorium. I was one of the presenters, and I chose to present where backcountry snowmobiling came from and where it's at now,
Mm-hmm.
and avalanche education throughout. So I did my best at kind of capturing and explaining to all these human-powered folks that learned how to ski at a ski area. They skied powder at a ski area. They saw the ski patrol bombing for avalanches. Then they decided to go into the backcountry, and it registered to them that, hey, there's avalanche activity because the ski area bombs for it. You know, they put precautions in place, and now I'm stepping outside that comfort zone. So I took the attack of, well, snowmobilers never had that option. We went straight from the dealership of buying the product, hopping on it, and then saying, you can go up there and ride it, and then you just go straight into the wilderness where there's no safety nets, there's no nothing. So, you know, there's a reason I think that avalanche education just kind of wasn't really in the forefront, because you take any other motorized toy and you just kind of go rip it around in the summertime. You're not worrying about mountains falling down on you.
Right.
So, you know, I think some of the same aspects and our same mindsets kind of went into the sport, and man, it progressed really quick, right? Like we went from sleds where you'd have to spend half the day beating on a hill, putting in a single up track so you could get up and over to the other side, to nowadays you kind of wheelie up the hill first try. And, you know, it's just like further, farther, faster. We're way out there. We're way more exposed, but because the machines are so capable now. And so, yeah, it's been an awesome ride, man. And right now I'm balancing, you know, being an avalanche educator and being really passionate about that, and then being a professional rider and still trying to produce epic content for sponsors and joining with epic film projects. And man, I've been on one lately called Fresh Set of Tracks that is, I can't wait for people to see this, man. We're going to finish the last segment this winter. It's a 3-year project. There's 3 pro riders, and we're hitting 3 continents, and it's called Fresh Set of Tracks. It's being produced by some dudes in Sweden, Simon Selberg and Ricard Lovgren. And these 2 dudes are, in my mind, hands down, like some of the most amazing videographers / editors that you can work with right now. The content is just, oh man, every little snippet that I get to watch, like if they send little clips here and there, some spoof stuff, I'm just like so fired up. It feels so good to work with these guys. And we got to 2 seasons ago, we got to start off the project in Kamchatka, Russia.
Really?
And yeah, exactly.
And well, I was a little bit blown away, honestly, when you said 3-year commitment, because that's a big commitment. But yeah, Russia, that's also a big commitment. You know, I think we talk about it in the show, but this is a good example. To get really good content and stand out and make a name for yourself, it doesn't usually happen overnight. Actually, every overnight success story usually has like 2 to 10 years of like hardcore work behind it, except for maybe Larry and Tyser. Don't know about that one. Yeah. That might have actually been an overnight success.
Yeah, that might have been an overnight.
That might have been overnight, but yeah, I mean, that's 3 years to invest into a program is pretty significant.
Yeah, I mean, when I actually called Simon because I caught wind of it, and like the next thing I was like, I called Simon up because we had been friends already. He came on for a couple of our last Alpine Assassins. Like that's how we met him. He flew over here and did a film and appeared in one of the Alpine Assassins movies. And when I caught wind, I'm like, Simon, wait, what is this? I saw the name of it or something, and I'm like, I want in. I don't even care what you're doing, but I want in. He's like, and I said, how can I apply, dude? I don't know if I have what it takes, but how can I apply? And he's like, whoa, like enough said, you're in. I'm like, what? No way, you're kidding me, right? And so myself, Cody McNulty, who is just Cody in my eyes is one of the hands down just full send snowmobilers right now. when that guy rides a sled, you're just like, dude, that looks amazing. It looks
Yeah.
effortless. And he's jumping bigger than, I mean, he hasn't gone bigger than Treadway and KJ, but right up there with those two guys. And those guys have definitely sent the biggest ever.
Yeah.
So pretty sick. And then Simon himself, he's a pro rider and filmmaker. So three of us, we got to travel to Kamchatka, which was just a story in itself getting there. And then we had like perfect epic conditions and had two, Rickard and Yuki came with us as production. And man, we went out to this lodge, actually the fourth phase, Travis Rice and the gang, they used it when they filmed over there. And so we were greeted with these really awesome people that own this lodge that you had to take like a 45 to an hour long Jeep ride, kind of like a Land Cruiser on 44s.
Yeah.
They were deflated, and it was riding over like a whooped out snowmobile trail for an hour. So you're out in the middle of nowhere, and it's like run on solar and geothermal power, and they have hot springs, and it's dumping, and like we caught Bluebird, and there's like 136 volcanoes in the area, and 60 are active, and like it's just, I mean, we were on the planet Hoth. It was so sick.
You know, I would have said 135 volcanoes is a lot, but 136 is a little bit ridiculous.
Yeah.
A little ridiculous.
Yeah.
I could have
just
accepted
tips
less.
right over the scale, doesn't it?
If you'd have said 120, I'd have been like, great, now we're in a safe zone. But, you know, beyond that, you're in a red zone. Well,
it's
you know
wild,
what?
Man.
What I wanted to ask you next, Duncan, is, you know, who are some of your current sponsors and partners that you're working with?
So yeah, like sponsors and partners, and I definitely like to use the word partner, and affiliate, and you know, sponsors. I think, man, throughout I'm 40 now, so throughout my life, hearing that word, like, oh, you know, you kind of was, oh, you sponsored, bro.
Yeah.
So it always kind of cracks me up. So sometimes I really like kind of trying to twist it, because like I said earlier, you really, you know, you're part of the sales team, you're part of their marketing. So you're more of a partner, or I wouldn't say employee, because then you'd have to sign some different papers, but
yeah,
you know, affiliates, and you're kind of working with them. So, you know, I got lucky and found an outerwear company that actually approached me. Gosh, I think it was 2014 or 15, somewhere in there, FXR.
Mm-hmm.
And at the time I was like, sweet, like somebody actually called me to ask if I wanted to be a part of this. And I'm like, holy cow. Like, I think that was the first time that had happened. And I was like, I don't know what it was, but I'm doing something right. This is so cool.
Yeah.
And at the time I was with HMK with Kurt, and man, he was awesome. He's such a good friend of all of ours. And just a fun dude, right? So we were helping out Kurt, and he runs his shop out of his garage. And come to find, that's how FXR started. Milt at FXR started in his garage and ran that way for a long time, and slowly built it up. Like you said, like nothing happens overnight. So, the first season with FXR was just kind of through, I kind of got introduced to them by Brandy Floyd, and man, it worked great. Since Alpine Assassins, I have always had my own personal sponsor packet that I could send out. It's like an 8-page thing. It's got a cool photo on the cover with my name and my social media outlets, and then a short bio page, and then I kind of break it down further. I'm like, so I'm a professional athlete, but what's that really mean? You know, and give them some more meat and potatoes.
I like that.
And then I do a list of like what I'm going to do for your company. So I list out logo placements. I list out, you know, spots on the snowmobile, and my professional attitude. And, you know, a lot of it's kind of like, icing on the cake, right? You gotta talk a really good game, but at the same time, these are actually things I am going to do. And I make sure that I follow up, right? That's the huge thing. So the first year with FXR, like when we got done with the first year, the marketing guy called me. He's like, well, we just want you to know that you can't go anywhere else, because I went through the list of stuff you said you do, and you did way more, man. Like, we're so stoked. And So just like I started off really well, and man, I don't think I know everybody at the factory because I haven't been there, but I've met a lot of people that work for them, especially like going to Heydays and helping them set up one year and break down, and having the different email contacts. And then we've been doing a photo shoot ride every year where like a lot of the team gets together and we get to meet all the other riders, and some of the production people come out, and I have a great relationship with one of the designers. And, like you said, you got to stand behind a company that has great people. And I mean, every single person at FXR has been great people, just super fun to be around. They're committed, and they love what they do from what I can tell. And I think it shows in their products, like all of them. And man, dude, they have so much products. It's insane. Yeah,
definitely. It's a couple things I want to pull out of that real quick. One is everybody knows Kirk Zach. He was been on this show before. I can't remember. I think it was episode 53. He came on with Tucker Mertz, and that was a pretty fun show. And they make great products too, but it just seems like everybody at some point has worked with Kirk or knows Kirk or whatever. I got at this last Heydays, I helped him with some of the setup, and he let me podcast out of his HMK booth, and I ride HMK gear too, and man, he's hilarious too. Like you spend a couple hours with Kirk, he's hilarious. But either way, I wanted to kind of highlight that, and then the next thing I want to highlight is in your sponsor packet, and then also something that you shared earlier. I think it was with the webisodes, but maybe it was for the actual Alpine Addix shows. But you talked about very tangible expectations that you could put out there for your sponsors or for your partners. At this point, you're going to see your logo pop up on the webisode, and on the machine, you're going to see this size logo, or this is how many tags or posts or whatever we're going to see. The tangible nature of, like, if you actually sit down, if nobody's ever done this before, I encourage you to do it. If you actually sit down and write out the things that you just do naturally, you're going to be shocked at how many things you do. If you just write that down as part of your packet and then share it with your next sponsor, you're already going to be that much better off. Just by the tangible nature of things makes it so much easier to understand and comprehend and explain. It's a game changer.
For sure. I couldn't agree more. And after doing this for quite some time, or a little bit of time now, it's funny, this time of year, when I check in, I check in more than just once a year, but talking this time of year with some of my sponsor companies or affiliates, I'm always like, how's the sponsor thing going? Because they just get bombarded with requests, right? Mm-hmm. And I think the number one, not complaint, but when companies are like, oh man, we always get the same one. Hey, sponsor me, bro. I do cool stuff, and I post it on social media. Mm-hmm. And like, I can't tell you how much that's probably a detriment to even trying. Yeah. Because I think it limits how many people they actually look at. So yeah, like you're saying, if you write down just the tangible stuff, like, hey man, I'll post 3 times a week that have your product in it. I mean, that might be a lot, right? But if you're going after just one sponsor, I mean, that's something you could do, and that's something you probably already do a lot more, because 3 times a week of posting something on social media, I mean, that's not a ton these days, right? So, or just saying, I'll put your logo here, here, and here, and I'll go to 2 dealerships and talk about your product. It's
right.
Just putting it down is huge. So
it is, and it's also, I think, helpful in understanding for yourself of what is actually involved, because then you can create some consistency in what you do. I'm all about shooting from the hip sometimes. I definitely go into that. But if you can capture your process that you follow, it does a couple things. One, it allows you to repeat it again, which shows consistency, and it shows that you can deliver the same type of value day in and day out. That's one thing it does. The second thing it does, it allows you to highlight gaps in your process, things that are missing, and that means you can improve. So if you actually capture what you're doing, you look at it 6 months later, or you're getting ready to pitch to a new sponsor, you go back through and you're like, I could probably do better at this. I think I could, I can change this. I can do better. And all that really takes is writing it down and looking at it. It's amazing.
Yep.
So we covered FXR, and then I took us down a rabbit hole there. But who are the other sponsors that you work with, the other partners that you work with?
Yeah, so FXR is like my premier. They're kind of my number one, and we have a great relationship, and things really have been working out well, and it's been a lot of fun as well to work with them. And then as far as snowmobiles go, I'm riding Skidoo, and I work with Tom Snowmobile, who's actually done a really good job at marketing himself in the industry, especially in the race scene. He's been working with Fox for many years and building his own suspension. So he actually does a lot of parts. And the funny thing is, most people don't know, but it's a shop that's like the size of my living room and kitchen. It's super small. It's crazy.
Yeah.
I've got a really small showroom that can fit 3 sleds inside, and then it's kind of packed full of stuff, and it's up in Sierra City, which is like Northern California foothill, kind of up in the mountains next to the Buttes. And so it's like just a small town. You could probably walk through it in like 2 minutes. And then their shop is one bay. So they have all these sleds parked outside and all these covers, and they can only work on one sled at a time. There's like 1.5 mechanics for the season. But man, like these guys are like the core of snowmobiling. So it's really awesome. And they've been a lot of fun to work with. And then last year I signed with GGB Exhaust. This is a company out of Canada.
Yeah, with
as
Keegan.
Well. And they actually
did Keegan Johnson say, yep. Yeah, he's been on the show.
Oh yeah. This is like one of the second or third companies that's actually called me, and I was like, "Oh, this is awesome, right?" And last year, and so they've actually been awesome. Keegan's super supportive of anything that I have going on, and they do a great job at just kind of being real. And like that, like we said earlier, it transfers into their products. Man, they really make some solid equipment. So it's been fun working with Keegan. And then Backcountry Access is I've been working with on the snow science and safety aspect of things, and they have a plethora of gear, and they're very into avalanche education, so that's been great. Signed with Munster Finger Throttles last year, and Andrew runs, Munster is his last name, and he makes some of the most precise products I've ever seen. Like the dude is just a genius, and he is a total shredder on the sled. And his finger throttle like changed my life, which is a whole nother topic, but it's sick. And then Sly Dog skis, I've been working with those guys. Shane Kelly actually got me hooked up with Sly Dog skis in like 2010 or something. And I've been with those guys for a while. We just actually, over the past couple of years, designed a new mountain ski, and that just released. And then handlebars have always been kind of jumped around a little bit, but finally landed with CFR, which is Cheetah Factory Racing. And I actually I didn't know what I was missing. So I've been really pumped on the way their bars feel. It's like actually a different feel than the other bars that I've used in the past. So that was awesome. And Bruce Sergine with Sled Wraps or Deviant Inc. I actually met Bruce with Rob Hoff a couple years back out in Wyoming, and we kind of had so much fun and kicked it off as friends that, just one season, I was like, "Hey, Bruce, why don't you got room for me?" And he's like, "Oh, heck yeah, anytime." So that worked out. And actually, a couple years ago, he did a Pro Series wrap for me, which kind of was super flattering. And he's got some really cool designs. I really like the way that they do the graphics. And I'm kind of into tattoos and this West Coast California dude. And so I really like their style. It's been pretty awesome.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah, it's been nice, man. And then I also work with Mountain Tech Performance, and they kind of, they make the blowhole and like a brake reservoir cover and some rear wheel kit that's stronger. So they have some different products out there, and I think they just got into turbos as well with the Skidoo. They've been doing Polaris, but then Zebras, man, Nate Zollinger was one of our first supporters when we got into this, and we've always had a great relationship. And those guys, they live in like the mecca of mountain snowmobiling and hill cross area out there in Utah. So
that's awesome.
Their products are also really top notch, right? Like built so your sled can last type of stuff. So it's been nice working with them. And really another one of those like solid family feeling, which has been great.
Good.
And then MVM Motorsports, I've been running a belt drive with these guys, which is actually the lightest on the market if you actually go and weigh all the belt drives and check them out. This one is the least rotating mass, and this one, the MVM belt drive, eliminates the most rotating mass and is the lightest weight kit out there.
Okay.
So
nice.
It's really pretty too. Like you put it on the outside, it's like polished aluminum, and it's all
right on.
CNC'd and laser cut, and dude, it looks sick. So
that's awesome.
That's been a fun one. And Extreme Air Vents. They're out of Alpine, Wyoming, super small, but he builds specific intake covers that don't puncture because they're like aluminum with holes, and then it's wrapped in like a microfilm. So. Dude, they're awesome. One of my favorite little add-ons to the sled, right? Because if you do a ton of tree riding, you're bound to stick a branch through one of your intakes, especially on Skidoo. So the Extreme Air Vents, it's really cool, like $40 product, and you're set, right? So again, really cool guys out there sledding all the time and living in the mountains. And, it's been fun.
Well, one thing I like to highlight with guests that have knowledge about their individual sponsors, pretty much everybody that interviewed does, but we don't always get a chance to dive into some of it. But I do like to highlight when you know some of the backstory or some of the details about the product. Like in this case, I think it was helpful for you to talk a little bit about how the belt drives are, like what they look like, and a little bit about how their process, you said CNC, and I think you might even said laser etched. Knowing some of those details I think is great. And then with the mesh vents, like, they have, a coating on it that makes it extra strong. I mean, I think those little details help. Probably they're also bolstered, I'm assuming, by if you do product reviews for any of these, you naturally dig into those things, and that helps sell it to others as well.
Yeah. I think it's important. I think you touched on it earlier, actually, talking about knowing what a product is, right? You had mentioned,
SolderWeld.
was one of your first, SolderWeld. At first you were like, I don't really know what this does, you know? And I think that if you're going to align yourself with a company, I think it's really important that you understand what it is they're selling, how it works, and kind of, that way you can stand behind it as a product alone, whether you're friends with the people or not. Like, at a certain point, the product has to stand up to what you believe in. So, finding out the details, and also figuring out the best way for you to talk about it, right? I've found kind of certain ways that I'm better at explaining things. And so there's certain aspects of products I'll kind of like latch onto and try and figure out the best way to explain it to somebody else. Because, when you just chat about something, it's kind of hard to explain maybe what something does or how it feels. So kind of latching onto a couple specifics that you can really articulate the point you're trying to get across, I think, is huge when it comes to promoting a product. Yeah,
definitely. Well, I just want to ask a couple of quick questions here, and then we're going to kind of close things out. So one thing I was going to ask is if you've run into a time, or if you can recall a time when things didn't go well with a sponsor, whether it was a failed pitch or, it just, you didn't see eye to eye, and we don't have to get into the names. But I was just curious, so I know everybody runs into this at some point, and it's just tough sometimes to know what to do next. So do you have anything like that?
So, I mean, a failed pitch. Oh yeah. Like if you're really trying to go after this, then you're going to get turned down a bunch, right?
Right.
You kind of need to be prepared. And, I've always believed in the squeaky wheel. I've always believed in the squeaky wheel gets the grease. So if you're not like being proactive, then you'll definitely get a failed pitch. But if you are being proactive, that'll increase your chances.
That's awesome.
I've
So
definitely had.
I have a quick
sorry.
note on the squeaky wheel gets the grease. At Heydays, I got to sit down with AMSOIL. AMSOIL is the title sponsor for this podcast. I got to sit down with Lindsay Primo, who she's like one of the two people that is going to be seeing your rider resume or whatever your application is. She's going to be looking at it. And she said, the squeaky wheel gets the grease. Same thing. She's like, but caveat here, you can be too squeaky.
True. Yeah.
And then I tried to
There's
like
a fine line to everything.
Yeah, we spent like 2 or 3 minutes of that show trying to define what too squeaky might be, and I think we landed on like if you follow up twice, and you know that they've seen whatever it is, like that, and they're still not responding to you, stop squeaking. Like you're beyond needing grease, right? You need a whole new bearing at this point.
Yeah, you might have just sealed the deal.
Right, and so that was. It's interesting that you said that exact phrase because it is true. There's just also like sometimes the squeaky wheel gets smashed by the hammer because you can't deal with the noise anymore. But
yeah, true. Yeah, you got to find the right amount. If you're up in somebody's face, it's too much. If you're prodding them from afar and respectful about it and doing it with the right intentions, then, should work out.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, sorry, you started saying something else and I kind of cut you off there.
Yeah, I don't know. I think I forget.
It was probably the most amazing game-changing
I think you're
comment ever, but that's fine.
Yeah, I was going to drop some serious knowledge and like explain all of this, but then,
I interrupted you.
Would you talk to? Yeah.
Well, no, that's helpful though for people to understand. It's not just them, right? I think everybody's had some failed pitch at some point.
For sure.
And it's not. You're not alone. You're not alone. Yeah.
Yeah, and failures make you stronger, right? Like you learn from your failures, or you should, I hope, because then you can understand what not to do. And boy, if you know what not to do, it sure makes knowing what to do a lot easier to pick out.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
I've definitely had, I think the most interesting for me has been when I go through like a sponsor change, or like having to call a company to say, hey, it's not working out the way I was thinking, or, we've both upheld our part of the bargain, and, maybe I'd like to see it go this way, but these other guys called and I was thinking about going with them, and how to approach that situation. Because a lot of the times that I've been through it, I've kind of gotten the question of, well, can't we negotiate? Like, isn't that how this works?
Yeah.
And, at a certain point, you got to go with your gut as well. So sometimes you might end up bouncing around the industry and landing different sponsors every year, or, you'll go through these breakups, right? And it can be tough because you don't want them to look at you in a bad light. So like, I guess if you were to ask me what I would suggest in that situation, would just to be, try and honor your part of the bargain up until the end, and then go with your gut and be as truthful and helpful as you can. I feel like all the sponsors that I've had, I could probably call up and have a good conversation with. Our backcountry snowmobiling especially is super small. Well, snowmobiling in general is a small industry. So, and Kurt actually was one of the first guys to ever say this to me. He's like, well, you know what, man, don't worry about it. It's such a small industry. I'm sure I'll see you around. And plus the good news is we're friends, right?
Yeah.
So, that was like, you know what, you're right. Like, I shouldn't be stressed about this. It's kind of like when I left HMK, I was like, oh man, I kind of had to put up and said, Kurt, like, I think, this is what I need to keep on going here, because this is what I was offered, and man, it'd be silly of me not to go with it. And he's like, you know what, you're right. Like, I can't do this that you're saying. So, it just doesn't, as a business, like, you got to look at things in two aspects. One as, a friendship deal, and then the other as business. And sometimes you got to wear that business hat. And if it makes sense, great. If it doesn't, well, bummer, but there's still growth to be had in other places. So,
yeah. No, I think that's a
think
great
Kurt
example.
really helped me along.
Yeah. I would agree.
The cool
From
part
what I
is
can hear.
now, Kurt still sends me photos when he goes to any punk show.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, yes, dude, because I used to rock NoFX and go to a lot of those shows. And I just think it's sweet. We have a different connection that's totally off topic. And I think that that's huge.
Yeah, I guess I'm not too surprised that you brought up Kirk there, because he is, for people who don't know him, I mean, you could listen to his whole episode and you can hear some of the stuff. I think it was 53, but he is just very honest and like genuine. Because I talk to my sponsors quite a bit, and I called up Kirk before I did an episode with David McKinney with 509. And I called Kirk. I was like, hey man, I have an opportunity to interview David McKinney, who's the creative director at 509. And I said, but it's 509. Like, are you okay with that? And it was almost as if he didn't laugh at me, but he very well could have laughed at me. Like, why would you care about that? I was like, well, I don't, like, that's your competition. He's like, yeah, whatever. I don't care. Like, and he was so comfortable. He said, look, the world we live in is bigger than just you and I. And if there's going to be value out of promoting another brand for one of your episodes, he's like, we need to take that value and like, so do it. He's like, do it. And if something else happens as a result, whatever. If they sell more things because of your show, like, great. And he's like, I don't care. Make a good episode. That's all. That's what I care about. Deliver value. I was like, okay, that high five, man. That's pretty awesome. And I was stressed about that. I was honestly stressed about that phone call, because I was like, I'd really like to do this interview. I think it'd be a good one, but I don't want to upset Kirk. And afterwards, I was like, wow, I had no reason to be stressed.
Well, that's like one of the things is as soon as you talk about it, right? You build up this precursor idea, and you're nervous and stressed. But once you have that conversation with somebody, then usually the case is that it totally evens out, and everybody comes to a conclusion that's usually pretty good. And and you said that Kurt was like, oh, go for it. They're a competitor, but I'm stoked for you because this is, it helps everybody. It's cross promotion. Mm-hmm. And same thing with the people at FXR. Like, they're all about me promoting the things I'm doing. And if in that there's some sort of cross promotion, well, people now affiliate me with the FXR brand. Mm-hmm. And so if I'm appearing in some other spot, they're still affiliating me with that. So, it just kind of helps across the board. And again, we're such a small industry. If we totally limited ourselves and did no cross promotion, then God, we'd all be shooting ourselves in the foot. Like, there's no way we'd be able to do half of the stuff we do. So the nice thing is that everybody, for the most part, plays nice together, and they all get it. And so, like, when it comes down to it, everybody loves the sport that they're doing. And if you're part of the industry, like, that passion is only increased, right? Professionals in sports have more passion because they want to do whatever it takes to continue to do the sport at the highest level that they can.
Right.
And I think that's what's so special about all this.
Definitely. Well, we're going to kind of close things out here. I want to ask one last question, and that's like, if you had to leave the audience with one piece of advice, if they forgot everything else from the show, what would that one thing be?
So I'm thinking about it right here, right? Because that's a pretty good question, right? Like, that's a pretty heavy statement. But I would have to say, figure out what you're passionate about, and don't give up until you reach every goal that you've set. Mm-hmm. Because at the end of the day, if you're not doing the things you're passionate about, then you're just kind of auto-tone through life. And life is way too special, and everything is available as long as you have the right passion to follow, the things you want to do. Because, you're the only one that can set limits on yourself. Nobody else can set limits on you. And if you have what it takes to follow your passion, then you'll be successful in whatever that is.
Right. Sounds good. Well,
I would actually like to add.
Go ahead.
Add
it up.
If I could add one more thing.
Add it up.
good friend of mine, Jeremy Hankey, who is a Canadian avalanche educator and a professional rider up in Revelstoke. We've become really good friends over the past handful of years. And him and I are going to be doing a 20-stop avalanche education tour in November. And we're splitting it up. I'm taking 10 stops. He's taking 10 stops. And we're in the Midwest and kind of the Western Mountain region. Mm-hmm. And we're still working on the exact dates and locations. But this is going to be, it's more than just an avalanche awareness talk. We're bringing our real life stories, the things that worked, the things that didn't work, the mistakes that we made, and all our experiences from our combined years on the snow and being in the backcountry. And we're trying to bring this to the community so we can raise awareness, raise education, and get people the tools and the skill sets that they need to play in the backcountry safely. So I urge all the listeners to check out over the next month. Look for the marketing, look for the dates and locations. We're going to be plastering this stuff all over social media and such. But, just getting more avalanche education out to our community of backcountry users is one of my large goals right now. And this tour is like such a great step in that direction. So I'm really fired up about what we're going to be doing. And hopefully we see some good attendance, because if anything, it's just going to be a good time to get together and talk shop, right? So
yeah. Well, I'm glad you snuck that one in there, because we're minutes, if not seconds, away from closing out. So glad you remember to get that in. Yeah. That's important. For people listening right now, we are recording on September 19th of 2018, which is also my mother's birthday. Happy birthday, Mother.
Hey, happy birthday, Mom.
So by the time this comes out, when you're listening to it, you're going to probably want to go start checking out social media to get some more information on that. Well, good. What's the best way for people listening to connect with you?
I've run an Instagram page. It's called the Duncan 775. I also have my Let's Ride Adventures on Instagram as Let's Ride Adventures. And then you can follow me on YouTube and Facebook under Duncan Lee. And if you search Let's Ride Adventures on Google, you should be able to pop up one of my episodes. There's 22 to date, just released right before Heydays, my 2018 sled build, along with some epic moments caught in the backcountry. And as far as that goes, looking for avalanche education, you can go to letsridetahoe.com and check out my website there, or duncanleeusa.com. I just launched that one last winter. Somebody told me it was a good idea to have my own athlete page, so I'm trying that out. And I've done some blogging, and I'm working on that and trying to get better at it. But those are the places you can check out to find out what I got going on. And just stay tuned. You can always look at avtraining.org. That's the ARI website, and look for avalanche education that way too. So sounds I'm out and about, man. I'd say Instagram's probably the number one thing that I use. So connecting that way with me is the best. And actually, lately, just another quick rabbit hole. I've been doing these live broadcasts on Instagram, and I'm actually doing like a cooking show, and it's been cracking me up. Yeah, dude, it cracks me up, because my wife and I cook a bunch, and we like eating at home, and I make a few kind of meals that are like my staples. But the other night, like randomly, I'm like, I'm just going to do a quick little live broadcast. And I'm like, oh, I'm making dinner, so I'll just do it about this. So I did like 45 minutes on how to make fried rice. And I got like a bunch of texts back, like, I made fried rice tonight. And that was hilarious. So it's been pretty fun. And I think I'm going to keep doing those. So if you're on there, like, keep your eyes peeled for another hilarious What's Cooking with Duncan Lee.
That's pretty awesome. That would be a first in the show. I mean, we do live videos, but like never had somebody on the cooking video. So
yeah,
check that off the bucket list.
Sweet. I'm a bucket lister. That's awesome.
Good deal. Well, hey, thanks again for coming on the show, for sharing your experience. We totally blew the structure out of the water. That's not completely uncommon for me to do, but I really appreciate you giving all the knowledge and advice that you did. But we got to close things out, so have fun and ride safe.
Thanks a lot. Thanks for having me as well. It's been a blast.
Thanks for tuning into this episode of the Sponsored Rider Club podcast, and thank you for hanging out for the show and making it to the outro, because this was actually the longest regular interview that we've ever released on the show. I think. I didn't go back and check all that, but other than the mashup shows we've done where I take a bunch of interviews and put them together, this was the longest one. So thanks for hanging in there. I just have a few things to put out there. Make sure you remember, go ahead and subscribe. That way you don't miss upcoming guests. We got Sean Whittycomb, we got Andy Wenslaff, Taylor Bunke, and Ben White from Textron Off-Road all lined up. Go ahead and follow us on social media. You get up-to-date information. Pay particular attention to our Facebook page. That's where we go live. Again, we just had Evan Schendel, the marketing rep from Polaris Razor, on, and he crushed it. So you're going to want to be involved with upcoming Facebook Live shows. It's fun. You can interact. You can go ask questions live. Good stuff. To get insider access and upcoming guests, go ahead and check out the Sponsored Rider Club on Facebook and request to join. A special thanks goes out to our sponsors, AMSOIL, Neverlift Racing, SolderWeld, Bold Racing, TopThePodium.com, Crash Addict Industries, and Racing Addix. I also want to shout out our other partners, GSP XTV Axles, MBRP Power Sports, MBRP Exhaust, HMK USA, and Studboy Traction. I look forward to serving you again next week. Until then, have fun and ride safe.